Hello, McCall. Thank you so much for being here with us
Ah,
today.
I'm so excited.
As are we. Oh my gosh, this topic of sleep and temperament and
Mm.
being exhausted. It's going to be a good one. But before we get started, McCall, we'd love to learn more about you first. So please tell us about yourself, your background, and how you ended up where you are today.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Well, it's really started back with the birth of my daughter. She's now 30. Oh my God. Um, and she just came out blazing, just eyes wide open, ready to hit the planet. And I was not prepared for that.
Yeah.
It was really intense. And at the time, it was really cry it out or nothing. And I was like,
Right.
well, I can't do that because I know I can't do it, but also I just know she'll outlast me. So there's no point in even trying. And so I just kind of gutted it out, which was really difficult. And at the same time, I was also really questioning all the parenting information at the time because the internet wasn't quite a thing yet.
Right. Yeah.
Um, it was actually there actually was like a phone book for the internet. That's what the internet was like. Yeah. Um, and I was really questioning all the things that people were telling me about sleep. It just didn't, a lot of it just didn't quite make logical sense. So
Mhm.
when my kids were old enough, I went to graduate school and got a master's in applied psychology with a focus on looking at the research that went into all the sleep training stuff. And also, I was asking questions about temperament and what it
Yeah.
meant and how it affected sleep. And at some point, after teaching research for a couple of years, I was like, maybe I should use some of this knowledge to actually like help parents. So I got trained as a gentle sleep coach with Kim West, who's known as the Sleep Lady, because her program was really systemically based and and took the whole picture into account. So it wasn't just this, little focus on sleep, but health and development and the family and everything. Um, and as I went along, I just started focusing on these kids who were like my daughter and my son. I actually have two of them. Um, you know, and I found that parents were having the same struggles that I had had years and years before. And so, really, not a lot has changed for these families in terms of better information that really takes temperament into account. And so, what I was finding is that these parents were also stuck in the middle of cry it
Mhm.
out versus nothing.
Right.
So over 30 years, really nothing has, or not much has changed, I would say, that's absolutely why the book came into being.
Yeah, I can see that because you're so right. Now that I think about it, and I'm thinking of all the different sleep training, sleep learning, whatever you want to
Hmm.
call it, available, it really is kind of one method that maybe someone developed and it's applied to every child
Yeah.
when every child is so different, especially temperament.
Oh, absolutely. That's a beautiful way of saying it. It's really true. And the kind of bill of goods that gets sold to parents essentially in the books is don't worry, it's going to be quick, it's not going to be that bad. Once it's, after a few
Mhm.
days, everything will be fine. And for
Mhm.
many, many, many people, that's the truth. That happens. But again, we're talking about this other group of people who absolutely don't have that same experience. And the books don't say, hey, if you don't see improvement in a few days, maybe stop. Or if your baby cries for 2 straight hours, maybe take a break. Whatever.
Right.
They don't make any accommodations for those parents.
Okay, McCall, now that you've told us all of this about your kids, now I need to know, like, tell us your journey with getting your children to sleep.
Oh my! Oh, they didn't. They didn't. I do not come to this because I nailed sleep. I
Ugh.
absolutely did not. But the good part of that is that number one, I can really empathize with the
Mhm.
position that people are in.
Right.
And I think the most useful part of that is I can tell parents that I don't recommend just slogging through it.
Mhm.
If I had had an alternative at the time, I would have used it. Now, the funny thing is, my co author, Kim West, had her kids about the exact same moment that I did. And what she did is develop this process with sleep because she, again, we were both in the exact same position. I
Right.
don't want to do crying it out. And she was like, but I really can't do nothing. So I'm going to try this process, this gradual process. And so that's how she started developing the method. I'm very jealous because if I had known her or if I had thought of it myself, like I said, I would have done it.
Yeah.
Um, so I can't recommend just waiting for it to blow over because it can be years and years and years.
For sure.
We all made it through in one piece, and it, but I can't, like I said, I don't look back on that piece fondly. That was
Yeah.
really, really rough.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, for
Yeah.
sure. There's a reason why they use lack of sleep as a form of torture because it's just hard.
Oh, it's yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really hard. And there were lots of days, I tell people, there were lots of days where I was just a grumpy, angry zombie and
Yeah.
thinking, is this better than having done a little bit of crying? Well, it wouldn't have been a little bit of crying, but is this better? Like I was like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
not going to do crying it out, but I'm going to be this terrible, grumpy person. uh, I don't know that that's better, right?
Yeah.
But again,
Right.
I didn't.
You did the best you could with the knowledge that you
y-
had and what was
Yeah,
available to you.
yeah,
And that's what I think we're all trying to do.
yeah. I think the hilarious part too is when my daughter was, I think she was like 4 or 5 months, probably 5 months old. Because we, full transparency, we were sort of doing the attachment parenting thing. We were like, oh, we'll just follow her cues. We'll just follow her cues. It'll all be great. The book says it'll all be great. It wasn't all great, right? So Dr. Sears's office was near where my folks live in Southern California. And so we basically went and had an appointment with him. And we were like, what the what? Right? Like, what do you say now? And it was at that moment that he was writing the Fussy Baby book because
Mm,
he had had a bunch of kids and then he had one. He had a live wire. And he
yes.
himself, they realized that everything they had told parents didn't work the same with her. And so
Right.
he was writing this book.
Right.
So everybody admits with certain kids, things do not work the way
Oh,
that
for
they
sure.
do for another set. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And we've had Dr. Sears on the show, and he has told us about this said child that you have mentioned.
Hate it,
And
hated,
I
yeah,
know. Oh, but
yeah,
so you said live wire. So explain
yeah,
to our listeners
sure,
what's a live wire and
yeah.
how do these temperament traits impact sleep and
Oh, I
parenting?
love that. That's a huge question, but yes. So, there's lots of terms for what we're talking about. Nobody's really settled on one. So, spirited, Sears says high needs, which I like. I like both of those. Um, highly sensitive is a different sort of subset. I just like live wires because um, I always felt with, especially with my daughter, that she just had more like current running through her system. Just everything was a big deal. She saw everything. She was very, like, she just wanted to take in the world, but she had no idea, like, how to power down or how to say, oh my goodness, that's enough. That's too much.
Yeah, I think the idea too behind like this idea of wiring and circuits is that it just was really easy for her little circuits to get blown as well. Like things would just throw
Mm,
her. She just never wanted to sleep. And so, uh, over time I started, well, I used Mary Sheedy Kurchinka's Spirited Child work as sort of a guide. Hers was that was published back in the late 80s. So it was around when I had my daughter and I definitely read it and used it because she talks about the temperament characteristics that we usually think of as making up everybody's temperament.
mhm,
But for these kids, it's intensity, sensitivity, so either emotional or sensory sensitivity, persistence, perceptiveness, something called reactivity, which means intensity is like how big are the reactions, and reactivity is how fast do they happen.
Mhm.
Often high activity level. I throw in a couple more. Usually these kids are quite bright too, so kind of big brains. Um, they can have a real tough time with transitions, which is what sleep is about as well.
Mhm.
So we're talking about a subset of kids. And when I talk to parents, I've noticed that these traits, like you just go through it with parents, and it's funny how it really is kind of a thing, right? So I start saying, I'm going to bet that your kid is this way and that way. Do they do this? Do they do that? And it's like it's almost a type. It's interesting.
Mm. Yeah.
The only differences are in how it's expressed. So there are kids who are probably extroverted. I kind of call them outies in terms of like their intensity goes out. They're kind of social, and if they have a meltdown, it's outwardly expressed. Yeah,
Right.
big and loud. Then there are kids who are the ones that are sort of quieter, take more time to warm up to things, hang back, kind of more introverted kids. They're
Mhm.
still intense. These children are still emotionally intense, but it just
Mhm.
sort of inside rather than out. So
Right.
people say, "Oh no, my kid's not intense," but they do, you know, take a long time to warm up or whatever. And you're like, that's a kind of intensity by itself. Um, so how does this impact sleep? How does it not? It impacts every aspect of sleep. It really does. So I say, think about what it takes to fall asleep, right? You, first, you have to know you're tired. You have to get the signal that you're tired. Then you have to be willing to disconnect from whatever you're doing and turn towards sleep. And then you have to actually be able to sort of succumb to the feeling of going to sleep.
Right.
More intense live wires are bad at every stage of that. I don't think they actually get a signal. I don't think they get the memo that they're tired because they're so engaged in the world. I don't think they know they're tired, first of all.
Until it like hits them like a truck or when?
Well, I think, yes, I mean, at some point probably does, but they generally get like this, right? Like think about like cups of coffee.
Yeah.
And maybe they crash, maybe they don't. I've seen these kids like be able to be awake for a crazy number of hours. Um, so they don't really know that they're tired, number one. Number two, they don't want to disconnect from whatever it is they're doing because they're so engaged in
Mhm.
life. And then there's a lot that is involved in finally getting your body down to sleep. Usually they need a lot of help. They need motion, they need sound, often like babies bouncing on a ball, like really big input to really
Mhm.
finally power down. So it's just not an easy process. So when parents are like, oh, my kid won't sleep, they're really up against like a much steeper hill in terms of trying to understand when and how to get this particular child to sleep because these kids fight it tooth and nail. They really do. Parents will say this has become like almost my password for the LiveWire Club is if a parent says it's like he has FOMO, right? Do you know
Yes.
that term? It's like he has FOMO
Yes.
and he just doesn't want to waste time sleeping. That's these kids in a nutshell, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And how does current sleep training information and research fail to really consider this temperament?
Oh boy. I don't know. I wish I knew because here's the thing. They absolutely know that these kids have more trouble with sleep. They
Right.
absolutely know. Now research calls it a difficult temperament, which I don't really love, but
Mhm.
we're sort of talking about the same kids. They absolutely say kids with a difficult temperament have worse troubles with sleep. But none of the research has ever looked at, well, how are the outcomes for these kids? They don't even assess temperament
Mhm.
in research studies. So when people say, oh, for example, crying it out works and it works great, they're talking about averages. And if they never look at temperament, it's possible that in every single study, the people for whom it didn't work were all these kids. Like we don't
Right.
know that. We
Right.
do know that across studies, crying it out doesn't work in the study for between 25 and 50% of people in the study. If you think that 20 to 25% of kids have this kind of temperament, interesting overlap.
Right.
But yeah, we really don't know. Sleep books also don't really take it into account. They don't say, hey, if you, I mean, some maybe in passing will say, hey, if you have a child that's really more intense or fussier, you may see these kinds of challenges with this method. But I don't think they really talk about workarounds or any kind of um, plan Bs for these parents. And so what happens is someone will say, "Well, I got a sleep train. I guess I'll try it." And their kid cries for 3 straight hours the first night. The book
Mm.
doesn't say what to do. The book
Right.
doesn't say, "Hey, if your kid cries this long, maybe you should think about something else or check this out, or maybe it's because of so so again, these parents are really without good, solid information, and they're really up against a much, much, much bigger challenge. Um,
So then what does that mean for parents with
yeah,
children with varying temperaments? What does that mean for them?
it means they're just struggling. I mean, really,
Yeah.
they're really, really, really struggling. I really, um, they're struggling in so many different ways too. Not only
Mhm.
is sleep hard, but really daytimes are hard. Like these kids
Yeah.
require more from parents as a baseline. These
Mhm.
parents are working harder every moment of the day. Plus, parents often feel stigmatized. They often feel like they're causing it, right? It's my fault that my kid is doing this.
Mhm.
All of their None of their friends have a child that's similar. So then I always hear from parents, "Oh yeah, my sister's baby is sleeping 10 straight hours. Mine won't even sleep more than an hour and a half at a time." So they feel like, what's the matter with me?
Mhm.
Why have things gone so wrong? And they don't necessarily know, or they're not given the information to say, hey, it might not be you, except for the genes you donated here, but there is that. But it's not you. And
Yeah.
I can't even tell you the relief I see with parents when we start talking about temperament. And I'm like, this your kiddo came into the world with this. And
Mhm.
sometimes we track it right back to birth. Like we go right back to the moment they were born. And and once you start saying, yeah, that this is temperament. You have a
Mhm.
much more sensitive child who cries harder, feels more, is easily thrown. That's just who they are. You really do see a lot, like anxiety and guilt sort of floating off of their shoulders because they thought it was them.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it
Well, we
breaks.
all do that as parents. I think we always think, "Oh, it's the guilt. It's my fault. I'm doing something wrong. I did something during my pregnancy to cause this. I did something with my the parenting thing that I'm doing." And we always think, "Oh, it's my fault," because sometimes it is our fault. But in those kind of instances, no, it's who they are and you're
Right.
doing the best you can with what you've got.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, absolutely. And often that's the first thing I tell parents. Parents will come to me with all this guilt. Oh, I know we've done
Yeah.
the wrong thing. We're okay. We just had to, co-sleep because we just weren't, and they're just like, it's almost like a confessional. And when you say, look, that stuff wasn't bad, you were just responding, just like you said, you're responding to the child you have. So it's
Exactly.
all good. You did what you had to do in order to survive. So good for you. Good job.
Right. Right.
Now let's move on, right?
Yes. And so now that we're knowing that these, some popular sleep training options just aren't working for alert, intense, live wire kids,
Mhm.
what do you tell these parents? What can they do?
So lots of stuff, which is the good news. So
Good.
in the book, we really and when I coach, we do the easy things first. So we do things that aren't going to be hard, hopefully, to address. We rule out any kind of physiological conditions because these kids, it doesn't take a
Mm.
lot of discomfort to completely throw them. So that's the first step. We rule out all the culprits of, um, obstructed breathing, restless leg syndrome, food allergy, eczema. There's a lot of different physiological reasons why kids aren't sleeping well. Get that out of the way. Then we look at overtiredness. Okay, these kids are almost always overtired because of naps, or people are waiting for them to look tired, and we kind of get their day judged into a form. Then we look at the process of going to sleep. So, how a child falls asleep at bedtime sets the pattern for them of how they think sleep happens. They
Mhm.
don't know any different. So, instead of all this terminology of like sleep crutches and negative sleep associations and bad habits, which I just think it is useless for people, we just call it a pattern. And you can change a pattern anytime you want. It's not a
Mhm.
bad habit, and you haven't wrecked everything. It's just a pattern. So let's change the pattern. So if a kid has been bounced or rocked or fed to sleep, or you're lying with them and rubbing their back, that's how they think sleep happens. So if they wake up in the middle of the night, they're like, hey, you come back, do that thing you did at bedtime so I can get back to sleep. They
Right.
literally don't know there's another way. So we have to show them that there's another way. And all really almost all of the sleep training ideas say put the kid in bed, leave the room, and then come back, and leave the room and come back.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
these kids, it's A, way too stimulating to do that, and B, um, they will cry too hard too fast, and nobody's learning anything. So I use the sleep lady approach, where you get to stay with your child, helping them at first with this new way of doing things. And then we just back you out over time, every couple of days. And you can actually, we sort of have a template for how to do that, but you can go as slow as you want, or in as
Mhm.
small a steps as you want. I had one family with I think a very on it 3-year old, and they really get nervous when you're sort of sitting in a chair, like at the door, like they know you're going to pretty soon be outside the door. So we didn't even go from the door to outside the door. We did from the door, and then an inch, and then an inch, and then an inch. Like we literally were every couple of nights just moving a tiny little bit, because all you're trying to do is to get them to tolerate you not being right there every minute till they're asleep.
Yes.
Um, and what I love about it is that that means parents can make their own method. If you know the guidelines, you can figure it out. You can figure out something for yourself. You don't have to listen to me about what the steps are. You can do it yourself, or you can devise it yourself.
That's great. Yes. I think being able to take it at your own speed for your own comfort as a parent, but also at your child's comfort, to make sure that you're doing what is best for both of you to
Mhm.
get to that place of good sleep, I mean, is crucial.
Yeah, and
Gosh.
I think these parents too get in a zone where they feel like I can't have an influence on my child. My child's will and spirit is bigger than mine, and I'm so tired, I just can't fight it anymore.
Yeah.
And working this way on sleep, where we're like, look, you're going to help, but you're also drawing a line and saying,
Mhm.
I will help you, but I'm not going to do the work for you. And that when parents see it actually having some traction, I think the most important part of that process, sure, it's sleep, but it's actually giving the parent a little bit of feeling of agency. Like, oh, I can set a little bit of a limit, and
Mhm.
help my child move a little more towards the middle on this issue. And I think that's honestly, I want to say that's maybe the biggest benefit of this process.
For sure. Yeah, I can see that. And McCall, now you need to tell us about your big four strategies for sleep success.
Yeah.
Please tell us what these are.
Well, we talk about in the book the big four sleep tankers, and then the
Okay.
strategies that address the tankers. What I was trying to do with this idea is I really like to, because these parents are so overwhelmed, they're so tired.
Mm.
Really, we want to boil it down into just the absolute nuts and bolts, so that moving forward, parents actually have a little toolbox if things go awry, they can go, okay, wait a minute. What changed?
Mhm.
What could be contributing to this problem? And I hope I remember them all. So the four things are usually overtiredness, which is huge for this group of kids.
Yeah.
Easy for them to get overtired. So either not enough nap time, too late a bedtime, or too many hours awake at a time. So are they over? Did they get overtired? Are they
Mm.
overtired? Then is the bedtime routine not working for them? So there's strategy things in the book of about how to set up a routine that not only is doable for you, but really makes sense for who your child is from usually a sensory standpoint,
Mhm.
and also from a predictability standpoint. So really locking it down into steps that don't ever change. Um, uh, oh yeah. So then the third one, I always have to remember. The third one is the big one of, are you part of their go to sleep pattern? So that if you're doing stuff, even if it's just like the last little touch, or if you have to lie with them or any of that stuff till they're asleep every night, that's what we work on. And then the last part is consistency. And consistency really means that once you do something, you got to keep doing it. Parents
Mhm.
end up, especially with these kids, doubting themselves. And they'll try something for a day or two and go, okay, that's not working. We're going to try this. Okay, try that for a day or two. Okay, that's not working. And then nobody knows which end is up. So these kids really need a clear pattern, and they need
Mhm.
lots of repetition. So I say to pick your battles, but fight the ones you pick. So if you only want to work on bedtime, cool. Just work on bedtime, but really work on bedtime. Like
Yes.
really commit. Because if you don't, that wobbliness is going to, honestly, for these kids, will make it a lot worse. Yeah.
That's such a great tip. I think all of us do well when we know what to expect and consistency and that just routine. Our body almost relaxed because it knows what to expect. And I
Yeah.
feel like children thrive with that as well. So, yes, even when things haven't been working, just pick what your routine's going to be. At what point do
Mhm.
you think, like, okay, it's been, I don't know, 2 weeks, a month, it's still not working? When do you then change it up again?
Yeah, I so I it de- I wouldn't I pr- well, it depends on what we think of as working, right? We have to
Okay.
look at what are our expectations. So,
Right.
I tell people you really should see something budge in the first 3 days. And
Okay.
that doesn't mean it's all going to be better. It just means anything is better.
Right.
With these kids, also, success doesn't go in a straight line. So it's not like it's going to be bad,
Mm.
better, 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 fixed. It's going to be bad, better, little worse. Okay, a little better. Oh no, way worse. Okay, sort of better. It's going to be crazy for a while. But as long as something is moving somewhere, keep going. If it's horrible the first night and just as horrible the second night and maybe just as horrible the third night, like literally nothing has changed, I say stop.
Mhm.
3 days, I say
Okay.
stop. That usually tells me that something physical is going on that parents
Mm.
maybe need to investigate. We don't want to put anybody through torture, like really,
Right.
honestly. If you're not seeing something move and shift, that means something else is standing in the way that's going to be worth checking out. These kids are, I think, more vulnerable to a lot of different conditions. A lot of them have a history of colic, reflux, eczema. They're kind of just more sensitive inside and outside. So
Mhm.
they, I think, get thrown, but more by teething pain, by, um, any other ear pain, other conditions that another kid may be like, I'm fine. But they're like, I'm dying.
No, I get it. I mean, you're explaining my daughter so
Oh,
well. My son is such a he's the spirited one though.
uh-huh.
He's wild, he's an animal, but he's a great sleeper. Whereas my daughter, she's Very sweet, so pleasant during the day, but at night, my husband and I just loathe putting her to sleep because she just doesn't want to go to sleep.
Oh,
But she's very bright, just like what you said. She's had eczema, she has food allergies. And I'm like, okay, everything that you're telling me, McCall, sounds like it's a physical thing with her.
oh, well, I could ask you some questions.
I know. So it's just interesting because I mean, oh my gosh, she will stay up until 10:30 at night if we let her. No problem. So
Does
yeah,
she kick or how old is she?
she is 3.5.
Does she is she restless when she sleeps?
No, she's
Okay.
not. She's pretty when she's asleep, she's good. And that's
Okay.
that's why I'm like, "Huh, this is interesting." But she's not just the temperament that you're saying
Yeah.
that I'm sure our listeners are listening to. They're like, I'm thinking of immediately my son. He is very intense about everything in life
Oh,
and is like, you know,
on
fire.
fire. Yeah.
Yes.
That's
But
sweet.
when I say it's bedtime, I close the door and I don't hear from him until it's the morning time. And he sleeps for 12 hours. So, and he turns 7 next week. So it's wonderful. Whereas my daughter, she is just very calm and polite and so sweet and brilliant, but just is like, sleep, I don't do that. Eating, I really don't like to do that either. She's my picky eater too. She's just
Oh,
like anything that will keep me alive. I don't want to do any of that,
but I wonder if
So, yeah,
she's like any kind, the more sensitive, like her intensity is internal.
internal. It might be. So,
These
see, you're
kids,
teaching me so many good things.
yeah, these little kids, I mean, and again, 3 and 4, that's my jam. Those kids are amazing, and uh, they have so many troubles with sleep. But that's when
Mhm.
their brain, the ones that really are thinkers or creative, like I'm constantly thinking of stories and ideas and questions and fears and concerns and why didn't Shannon play with me at recess and what's that about, all of that stuff. Their little brains run away with them and then they don't go to sleep. So we do
Yes.
talk about in the book like helping them have some skills at bedtime to learn how to drive that bus of their
Mhm.
powerful brain, because that brain is not going away. That's not something that's going to change, but she's going to have to get better at figuring out how do I control that flurry of thoughts at
Right.
bedtime. So those kinds of things, deep breathing and stretching and bedtime mindfulness and gratitude and whatever it is, those are long-term skills that parents can start right away, because yeah, that brain's not going to get any less active.
Yeah. And that's so true. Oh gosh, this is again, we need your book. I can't wait.
Yeah.
And this is why we're talking to you about all of this stuff. And so, McCall, like how can parents create this like step-by-step plan for their child
Mhm.
using like a time-tested evidence-based approach that doesn't require leaving them alone to cry?
Yeah. So the way the book is structured, it's got a downloadable companion little workbook basically that kind of gives parents worksheets. And the idea is we want you to learn how to craft your plan and make
Mhm.
clear, thoughtful decisions about what's going to happen. We have to stay ahead of these kids
Yeah.
because if we don't, they're going to roll right over us. So you have to be ahead you have to be at the front of the parade, really, because um, we don't want you in the middle of the night trying to troubleshoot or problem solve.
Mhm.
So the workbook and the book is structured so that we say, okay, first we're going to rule out physiological factors. Blah 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 blah. Are you okay? Okay, here we go. Now step 2. Here's what we're going to do. Here's step 3. And so the again, the the function of the book is to get parents to be competent sleep coaches for themselves. And it
Right.
really isn't that difficult because, really, honestly, the moving parts, they're not that many. So if you really have this sort of rubric for how to understand how sleep happens, that means you'll understand what to do or how to figure out when things go a little wonky, because they will. They
Yeah.
really will. And that's the other piece about sleep training is a lot of the other books say, hey, just grit your teeth and then it'll be over. And
Mhm.
parents aren't told, guess what? You're going to have to do it again after travel, regression, illness. You sleep training doesn't stay done. So pick something that makes sense to you and that doesn't break your heart and do that. It's okay, but you will have to do it again. So it's good for parents to be able to go, okay, how did that happen? Right? Like, oh my God, what happened with sleep? Oh, okay, wait. Is it a regression? Are they getting sick? Do they have something going on with their ears? Did they skip their nap? You right? Like there's just a checklist that they can have in
Mhm.
their mind so that they know what to do in response. That's really the goal. The evidence-based approach is the sleep lady approach that there is research on it, on a more responsive kind of scaffolding approach to sleep. So we know it works, and we know that it results in lower stress levels for both the parent and the child, which that's a good thing.
Yeah. That's what we all need. Yes.
I know. Parenting is stressful enough. We know that. And again, I think any intervention works. We do know that. Really, anything works. One thing does not work better than another.
Mhm.
So again, I just want parents to know they have options, because I hear all the time people go, well, I guess I have to sleep train, I guess I have to use Ferber. It's like, no, you actually don't. There are some options. That's one, but there are others as well. So hopefully we're giving parents permission to
Mhm.
make their own choices for their family, and know that you really can't make mistakes. You can, well, you can, but they're not irrevocable mistakes, right? You if
Right.
you
Right.
if you go too far in one direction, you can make
You
a
can
complete
always
shift. Yeah,
Yes, absolutely. With anything with parenting, like we're never going to be perfect all the time. And it's okay to be like, all right, that was not the best choice. And now I'm going to make a change and switch it
right.
up. And that comes to sleep too. So I love that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of parenting, whatever advice, information doesn't convey that. A lot of the advice is like, because I have parents who are just like quivering, they're so worried.
Mhm.
And they're so worried they're going to make one false move and wreck their child. It's like it doesn't work like that. That's not how parenting is. You're not going to ruin your child because of one choice. But parents are really worried about that. And I
Yeah.
wish I wish we could change that, because it's just not that's not how it is.
Yeah.
That's a terrible standard to have to work towards, right? To
Yeah. Yeah.
avoid these like terrible landmines in parenting. It's like, no, it's a growing process that doesn't
Yes.
end, says a mother of
Yeah.
it doesn't end.
Exactly. And you know what? And to those parents and those who are listening who have felt the same way, that's just showing what an amazing and loving parent you are because you obviously want the very best for your child. But you are going into something that there is no schooling for, you have no former training, and you're learning on the job, as are all of us, says someone who's been working with babies for 14 years. I mean, come on, like things are changing all the time and we're doing the best we can in the moment. And if new information comes out or we discover that something isn't working, you just adjust. And thankfully, kids are so forgiving and also so adaptable that they they go along with the change too.
Mhm.
So now,
Yeah.
McCall, we need to know, like, obviously this whole sleep training, sleep learning thing is exhausting for parents too. Like, can you recommend any tips for tired parents? Like, what would you say to them going through this whole process?
Yeah. Well, I mean, generally they're tired before and they're probably going to be tired after. This is parenting's no joke. Um, there is a chapter in the book on self-care, which is, it's used a lot. And parents of these kids are usually like, ha, 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 right. Like self-care, right. Um, But it's something I wish I had taken more seriously when I had my kids, because people would say, "Oh, you should go." My poor husband, he'd go, "Why don't you just go? Take a shower, go on a walk." And I remember just crying and going, "But I just have to come back." And it was more like, that's not going to solve my problem.
Hmm.
But the point is not to solve the problem. The point is just to get a little tiny bit of gas back in your tank.
Yes.
And Amanda Diekman, who's known as Low Demand Amanda, I love her stuff. Um, oh God, was it her? One second. Actually, maybe we shouldn't. I should. I'm not positive it was her now that I think about it. Anyway, I'll start again.
Yeah.
Someone recently wrote about um, taking little tiny breaks, the power of little tiny breaks. And it
Yes.
may not feel in the moment like you're doing anything for yourself, but you totally, totally are. And not taking
Yes.
any breaks is really should be a no go. It should be
Yeah.
a no go. So even if you have to say, I have to leave the house for 45 minutes every day, everybody will be fine for 45 minutes. You have
Yes.
to dedicate your, you have to dedicate that time. And over time, that will help. But
Hmm.
the other thing I say is you have to really watch what you're consuming on social media and otherwise, because comparison to other parents, comparison on Instagram, we know that that's bad for mental health. And for parents who are really struggling, seeing stuff online of maybe parents having a much easier time is really disheartening. So
Yeah.
I say step away from the Instagram, like really limit what you look at, what you compare yourself to. You are on a different path. You really are. It's like, in a way, as if your child had some kind of a different kind of difference. You have a kid with a difference, and it's a different path, so you really can't compare. So there's a lot of sort of shifting perceptions,
Hmm.
which helps you keep your stress levels down. Self compassion, super important.
Yes.
So important. If people don't know about self compassion, look it up. But it's literally just taking moments every day to say a kind thing to yourself that you might say to a friend. I took a course on this, and the woman said, even if you can just put your hands here and go, there, like that, it helps. It seems a little silly. I mean, even if I was doing that, I start to choke up. So, yes, it's very powerful.
It
Um,
is.
it's really powerful. So take those moments to be kind to yourself and to validate how hard you're working. It's really important, really important. I mean, this is that put your oxygen mask on, right? Like they say on
Yes.
the airplane. It's no joke. You really have to, because these kids require a lot and you want to be there for them. And if you're depleted or on the edge of burnout, you're not going to be there for them
Yeah.
in a
Not in the
really
way that you want to be. That's for sure. Yeah, such good tips. Oh my goodness, McCall. And to end it on a positive note, like what are some of the perks of having a
yeah.
live wire
Oh,
child?
yes. I mean, they're incredible. They're incredible. And that's the thing about research that focuses on the difficult traits, is they're not
Hmm.
looking for the positive stuff that's in there too, right
Right.
alongside the hard stuff. So these kids are, again, often really bright. They're very creative. They're very deeply empathic, and have a real high sense of like justice and fairness. They're the ones that notice somebody being left out of a group, or something that's not quite right in their world. So deeply insightful, um, incredible. And as they grow, same. They're just, you know, they're really amazing people. I mean, my kids now are, all of what they were is in their selves, in their personas now. And I hear that from other parents of grown kiddos. So parents know this. I think they know that their kid is challenging and completely amazing. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
We just have to endure it as
Each
well, their
one.
children, and then survive, and then yes, and then there, yes, you see the fruits of all of your labor flourish.
Yeah. Definitely.
Oh gosh, I love that. That's so true. And do you have any just final thoughts that you'd like to leave our audience with, McCall?
Oh boy. I guess the main one is if you have a live wire, you are so not alone. You may feel like it, you are absolutely not. There are millions of people in the same boat. Just you just may not know who those other kids are, or you may not have them right near you, but there are so many. I always say find your tribe, right? Find
Mm.
find your group. I do admin two very big Facebook groups for on temperament. One's called the Fussy Baby Site Support Group for babies and toddlers, and then the other one is the Spirited Child Support Facebook group for slightly older kids. But those are all people in this same boat. So if you just need a place to vent or ask questions, it can be great. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Such great resources. We'll be sure to share them in the show notes. And where can people find you, McCall?
Yeah, littlelivewires.com or hashtag, if you're on social media, which I don't recommend. No, I'm kidding. You can be on my social media. Little Live Wires. And then the book is available for pre-order or order, yeah, on the all the usual suspects, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, other places.
Fantastic. Oh my goodness, McCall, this has been so lovely. And I've learned so much, even about my, I think you said, any little
Mhm.
live wire. I can't wait to get more of your book
Oh, good.
and learn all of the little secrets. And this has just been so fun. Thank you so
I'm
much.
so glad. Thank you so much.
Oh gosh. And for our listeners out there to learn more about McCall, as she said, you can find her at littlelivewires.com or on her Instagram at littlelivewires. Our team will be posting today's episode on our Baby Chick Facebook and Instagram page at the Baby Chick Chat. So if you have any questions or comments about our discussion, please share them with us in the comments section. And as always, if you haven't already, please subscribe to Chick Chat the Baby Chick podcast wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a review. Cheers to a restful night's sleep.